Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? I want to start with the big news with Carolina firing Frank Reich. It's obviously super relevant here because they're an NFC South team. Can I just start open-ended, like your reaction to the decision, not only the decision, but the timing, man? 11 games into year one with Frank Reich.
Dave Tepper, that's who he is. He's volatile. He's rich. There's a lot of that's Captain Obvious statement, billionaire. He's not, I think on his soccer, I think he owns a soccer club too, and I think he's fired a couple people there too. I don't think there's a lot of patience with his team now. I know he loves his football, but that's why I always say let the football guys handle the football, but it's his team. I don't know if necessarily it's just 1 in 10, Matt, the reason they fired him. I think they saw nil progress with zero with what they were doing offensively, because you get rid of Josh McCown and Deuce Staley, and Deuce Staley obviously held in very high regard in the assistant coaching ranks and in the National Football League. So I think it's impatient. I think when you see and I think C.J. Stroud's success had a lot to do with it. I do. You look over there, the guy was drafted after you. Bryce Young was supposed to be better. And I'm not willing to quit on a quarterback 11 games in, especially on that team, Matty. I'm just not. I know how tough the position is to play. I made it look tough at times. But even then, great players, Matty. Listen, if I told you that Pat Mahomes was going to be a Carolina Panther, but they weren't going to build any players around him over the next 7, 8 years, they're not going to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. They may get to 8, 9, 10, we get in the playoffs, but they're not going to get to the level that they want to get to. So we got to give a guy, and especially since Bryce Young's not going to be that guy, I don't think, that loads you up and carries you for 6 or 8 weeks. I think he's going to be a really good player. And Frank Reich knows quarterbacks. Listen, we're way too impatient. We are. 11 games in is unfathomable, and unless there's something going on in the building we don't know about. Just on X's and O's and wins and losses, it's ridiculous. And all of a sudden we're going to fire Jonathan Gannon because they're not very good in Arizona either, right? We're going to have to get rid of him, and we go down the line. I think there's got to be a little more patience, especially with a guy like Frank who's been in the league a while. Or, I also think that a lot of us felt that Steve Wilks should have kept that job. I thought he did a good job as an interim coach. But regardless, to me, it's a bit premature and outlandish that you knew going in you weren't going to be very good. But I think it simply comes down with the way they have fired is the progress with the quarterback. Because I think you knew you were going to win 3, 4, 5 games if you were fortunate. And the progress of Bryce Young, you're high-priced, and they're sold on him. So they felt like there was no development. I think it's premature, and I think it's a little bit overboard, but that's where we are. Everything's instant gratification. He reserves that right. He's the owner. And if you feel like you're not seeing 1 ounce of progress and it's going south, not north, I get why you do it. Frank will be employed again if he wants. He may not get a head coaching job anytime soon, but it's the NFL. If you haven't been fired, you will. And Frank's had a rough go of it because the quarterback didn't play well at the end in Indianapolis, Carson Wentz. This offense isn't moving, and the coach takes the brunt of it because you damn well know the first pick of the draft's not going to take the brunt of it right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. Is it realistic, Sean, to think you're going to see material progress through 11 games?
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, Matty, please finish.
That was the question. Like, can you really tell progress through 11 games on a team that, as we just talked, there's nothing around him. I mean, you trade away DJ Moore, you trade Christian McCaffrey, there's just nothing there. He's been sacked 50-something times. It's a terrible roster, man.
It's survival, Matt. Think about how we felt about Jacksonville, even with Trevor Lawrence there when Urban Meyer was there. Think about that and how, they had the first pick of the draft a couple years in a row, and then now it's turning around. Look what happens when you get your running back ETN healthy. You go out and grab Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. You start at the physicality like a Josh Allen coming into his own, who's dominating the defensive end edge rusher, Josh Allen. I mean, they went out Evan Ingram. They got some players, and look, all of a sudden the quarterback just seems to get better. The truth of the matter is, what Bryce Young's going through is that's the normal part. Manning is a rookie. Aikman in Dallas is a rookie. Elway getting knocked around. But the simple fact that the guy behind him's having so much success. You know that had to, as I said, bleed into this because you're saying, well, why is he making progress? Well, I like to think the roster, I mean, when you go around, Tunsil's pretty good. Their front seven's pretty decent. They've got Stingley. They've got, Petrie. They've got some decent players. Their run game, at least 3 of the last 4 weeks has improved. I mean, they're starting to – they've had a bunch of first-rounders over the years. Look at what Tank Dell and the group's doing. I mean, they've had some upgrades, so it's easier. And then you get a freak show at quarterback. I mean, it's different. And let's just face the facts right now. C.J. Stroud's farther along, and as a thrower, he's always been a better pure thrower of the football. And listen, when you're on Alabama may be able to line up and play a couple quarters with Carolina, at least hang around when Bryce Young was there. So, yeah, I think it's absolutely ludicrous we'd expect. What C.J. Stroud's doing is not normal. What Bryce Young is doing should be around the norm for young quarterbacks that are getting their rear end handed to him. He's been sacked, 40-plus times and hit about 100 more. Yeah. So that's the norm. But Dave Tepper beats to a different drum than most owners. He's not willing to give you a second year. I don't know what he has in mind for his next head coach, but if you're expecting next year Carolina to come back and all of a sudden win 14 games and be in the Super Bowl, you better strap it on for patience again or impatience, because it's not going to happen. So the Texans have had success, but Stroud's the outlier. What you're seeing Bryce Young go through is usually the norm for the first pick of the draft. Why? He's being picked first because your team sucked. Yeah. That's exactly why he's being picked first.
He's on Twitter at Sean Unfiltered. Which organization would you rather be right now? The Panthers with Bryce Young, but not a great roster and no head coach, or the Saints, who are at best stuck in neutral, at worst backsliding?
For people that love high draft picks, they're going to say Carolina. Love that, because you're in purgatory, right, Matty? You're a team that probably they're not Super Bowl ready. They've got some really good veterans, a mix of some talented young players, Olave, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a fan base, you're saying, and you're also saying, well, the first pick of the draft, Carolina, can we get one more guy to help Bryce Young? Well, I don't think one's enough. I think they're going to have a great draft and a good offseason to even get to 6 or 7. It's going to take the 2-year transformation. The Saints, with a player or two, they still should win the damn division if they could stop and not give up 250 yards of rushing and quarterback throw. But it was so Saints-like, right, Matty?
Yes.
High percentage completion, looked good statistically with Carr on paper, throws a pick. You get boat raced on a time when you're usually a pretty good defense. Better than pretty good. And yet Atlanta makes it look too easy, and Ritter and the run game. You're like, whoa, wait a second. This is not supposed to happen. Well, it did. And he didn't have enough offense to overcome that. So with that in mind, I would rather be the Saints. I think the volatility of the owner is different. I am going to be in a position somehow, some way. I've got to put myself in position to get the next future quarterback. Plus, right now, I've got players that are playoff roster worthy, and they still may make the playoffs and win the division.
Yeah.
So for me, just because you get that first pick of the draft, if you continue to play like Carolina has, okay, so you got a player. Great. Now, can you have success in the other rounds and however many draft picks they got? I'd rather be the Saints. I think there's more stability. I don't think it's as volatile on the ownership. There's some decisions in the front office and coaching that are going to need to be made. But both organizations are going to make wholesale changes. I think when it comes to coaching, I don't think either staff is going to be included next year. There may be a coach or two that stick around, but both of them, I think, are going to have a lot of changes. So I'd rather be the Saints because I'm closer to winning, because that first pick next year, it's not going to be a quarterback, even though you may think that you'd like Caleb Williams more. You're going to go get an edge rusher, a home run hitter for him, a big-time playmaker, an offensive lineman, whatever it is. I'd rather be the Saints because I like more wins, and one draft pick doesn't assure me of anything. And if you like security as a player or coach, Carolina is not the place to be right now with the owner.
Sean, last thing, what if Gail Benson brings back Dennis Allen? Where do you stand? Because this is the big conundrum that the Saints fan base has right now, and you just spoke to it, which is you still could win a bad division, but you're not close to a championship.
Agreed.
And people are like, are you playing out the string? So what if you go 8-9, 9-8, you win a bad division? Where does that leave you? Like, what if they do bring back Dennis Allen next year?
Well, first of all, if they do, then they're looking for a very minimal amount of energy in the offseason and probably average buy-in from fan base and players. Listen, when I say this, and I don't need to qualify this, and I don't need to explain myself for crap about Dennis Allen. I think Dennis is a really good defensive coach. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. You'll get close with Carr. You'll get close. When I say close, meaning you get to January, it's not happening. I've stated that on this show before. Mm-hmm. You're not going to play in February under the current regime. Some guys just don't get buy-in, and the leadership's different. Does that mean Dennis isn't a good coach or not a good guy? Absolutely not. But when I say buy-in, I'm not talking about buy-in from one side of the ball or 80% or 75%. I'm talking about buy-in from a team and an organization and a fan base, even though the fan base buys in when you start to win. I think we've seen enough to know right now with Dennis's group that they're not maximizing the room. And I say this a lot. If you can't maximize the room, I don't care how far you can throw it as a quarterback. I don't care what your stats look like. I don't care as a coach that everybody likes you in a press conference or that, man, the energetic practices in the meeting room, it's all fun and games. But I got to have results and I got to get buy-in and I got to have everybody on that page. Dennis can lead a Super Bowl defense. I just think for me, even colleges, Matty, when I'm looking at a coach right now, I don't need an X's O's head coach. I've already got that. Most of them are good enough to handle X's and O's. I can go handle X's and O's today on any system in the country. Not arrogant, but I can. The question is the leadership, the buy-in, and the maximizing the players, the assistants, the equipment room, is it there? And to me, I think I've seen enough evidence in New Orleans that it's not. I mean, how many times are we going to go over this? Liking a guy's one thing, but winning's another. Listen, Mr. Congeniality or Miss Congeniality aren't assuring me a national title or a Super Bowl, depending on what level I'm playing at. So while I like Dennis, and I hate saying this because I know how hard the coaching position is, but sometimes leadership's just straight DNA. And I don't think looking at them that it says to me, everybody's running through a wall for him. So if you want to come back and run it back the same way next year, you'll run to the wall. You may knock a few bricks out, but I don't think you're running the whole stone or the brick over. You're going to try to go around it, over it. I think there's too many holes in that part of it. Would I, if I'm a head coach, interview Dennis as my defense coordinator? Absolutely. But my head coach has to be CEO, buy-in, hire great assistants. I don't give a fuzzy rat's ass about his X's and O's. He's already proven to me along the line he knows X's and O's. That's why I hired him. But I got to have my number one priority. If you get leadership and you get buy-in, the rest will fall into place if you know how to hire assistant coaches and put your ego aside and let him coach. So I like Dennis. He's a good coach. He is not a great head coach. I've seen this movie, just like the quarterbacks who aren't the elite ones, where guys just kind of hover in the middle. They get by. Is the Saints' goal to get by and just get to January? If it is, keep him on staff. Hire, keep him, keep the same guys, bring Carr back, and let's go. And go win 9 games or 10 games and get to the playoffs. But you're going to get knocked in the mouth by teams that have more buy-in, better leadership, better players. So if that's what you want, great. But I know one thing. If I don't have full buy-in from the quarterback, that everybody's buying into the guy under center and the guy who's leading on the sidelines, then you might as well stick your head between your legs and kiss your rear and goodbye, because you ain't getting to where you want to go unless January is your destination. Have at it. I know damn well there's about 6 or 8 teams in this league that January is not good enough, and the Saints should have that same mentality. I hope they do. I like Dennis. He'll be a coach for a long time. I just don't think head coaching's in his long-time future, at least in New Orleans. There's still much to prove.
We've had church. Pass the plate, and I'll go home. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.